pleasant good day to everyone joining us for this Facebook Live presentation. My name is Terence Jack, plant pathologist at the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
To everyone joining us.
Land and Fisheries Research Division, Central Experimental Station. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone joining us today, once again, as the Ministry continues in this series of awareness sessions, where we provide you with important and pertinent information as it pertains to crop production, crop protection, animal husbandry, land tenure, fisheries, horticulture, forestry, and all things related. Now, by the way of background information, at the Research Division where I am stationed, the division is divided into two dynamic but equally important sections. Firstly, we have the crop research section, which is tasked with the responsibility of conducting research and experiments into a various series of activities, such as tissue culture, roots and crops, fruits, vegetables, herbs and spices, just to mention a few. And then we also have the crop protection subdivision, which is made up of the pest risk analysis unit, the plant quarantine section, the entomology unit, which will deal with pests, insect pests, and we also have the plant pathology unit, which will deal with plant diseases. So, the crop protection subdivision, our primary focus, our primary mandate is to protect Trinidad and Tobago agroecological environment. That is to protect the agriculture sector and the environment by extension from deleterious, dangerous, economically destructive pests and diseases. So, as you have seen over the past few weeks, my colleagues will have expounded on different pests and diseases of economical importance, such as the giant African snail, lethal yellowing, frosty pod, TR4 in bananas, to mention a few. And today, once again, I will be focusing on another disease of economical importance, that being Asian citrus canker. My presentation today will focus primarily on the identification, spread, and management of this disease. So, from the outset, I'd like to state that based on our routine surveillance activities, as recent as October 2021, Asian citrus canker has not been detected in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is a status that we are quite anxious to preserve and maintain. So without further ado, just permit me a few seconds so I can share my screen and we'll begin this presentation. So, as I begin, I'd like to once again reiterate that Asian citrus canker is a regulated pest. It's a quarantine pest of importance. And as such, it is an unwanted pest that we do not want in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is what we commonly refer to as a notifiable pest, meaning that if you suspect or if you are aware that this pest, Asian citrus canker, is in your farm or in your holdings, your farm holdings, you are obligated by the law to inform the relevant authority, that being the Ministry of Agriculture. And this has so been declared as a notifiable pest by legal notice number 104 of 2020 in accordance with the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is under the Plant Protection Act of 1975. As such, this Asian citrus canker is an economical pest. It's a pest of environmental importance. that the ministry and the country by extension is duty-bound to prevent its entry and control and the possible spread of this disease in Trinidad and Tobago. But further to that, the management of citrus canker is to be taken in context with other diseases that have affected us in the recent past, such as humlumbing or citrus greening, which we detected in and about 2016-2017. Also in the 1990s, we also detected citrus tristeza virus. Also in Trinidad, we have present citrus scab, citrus greasy spot, and citrus anthracnose. But through astute management practices, varietal selection, and our continuous surveillance activities, we have been able to control the presence of these diseases and minimize their impact on the farming community and our economy. Also, we are keenly on the lookout for citrus leprosis virus, another pest of quarantine importance that we will treat with in a future presentation. So, Asian citrus canker, many of you may be asking yourself, you may be wondering, well, what is this disease all about? What is Asian citrus canker? Why is it so important? Well, Asian citrus canker is a bacterial disease. It is caused by the gram-negative bacteria Xanthomonas anaphyloides Pathology citri. It is a serious disease of many commercial citrus varieties, and it has a wide host range. It has various strains and various variations to the disease. It's an economically important disease because it reduces food quality, it causes food blemishes, and it can also result in premature fruit drop and will render the fruits unmarketable. In that instance, fruits that are affected by citrus canker would have trade implications that relate to the importation and exportation of the good of citrus affected by citrus canker. Therein, there are serious considerations as it concerns trade. And as you can see, during the eradication program in Florida during the years 1995 to 1985, it cost in the vicinity of $1 billion to undertake this eradication program for citrus canker. Now we'll move on to the history of this disease. And as the name suggests, the center of origin for this disease is in Southeast Asia in India. Citrus canker spread from India and in Java in Indonesia to Japan, South and Central Africa, and into the Middle East, and even reached as far as Australia and New Zealand and into the Americas in the 20th century. Citrus canker, the presence of citrus canker has also been detected in South America, in Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. It has also been detected in the United States, in Florida, and this makes citrus canker a serious concern for Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. Due to its close proximity, north and south of us, and through our trade with some of these countries, means that there's a possible pathway for the entry of citrus canker into Trinidad and Tobago. Now, we'll move on to the disease life cycle of citrus canker. Citrus canker is able to penetrate the plants mainly through wounds and openings. It will pass through the wounds that are made through pruning and other physical activities, and it can also penetrate through the stomata of the plant through the leaves. The disease has a simple life cycle, but as you can see in the illustration, through various interactions and mechanisms, it is able to effectively spread from one plant and from one location to another. So therefore, it has an effective means of transmission. Wind-driven rain, water, irrigation water, rainwater, and even dew provides the perfect medium for the translocation and the spread of the citrus canker bacterial inoculum. So, as you can see in the illustration, where you have rain and water interaction, and this where the inoculum is available, it will penetrate through the leaves, it will penetrate on the surface of the fruits once there is some kind of opening, or if there's an opening on the leaves and branches, it will penetrate these openings and infect and infest and infect that plant. So, how is citrus canker spread? Citrus canker is spread through human and animal interactions, that being through tools, machinery, and we can even have the spread of the disease through your clothing. Of concern to us at this moment is the international movement of this disease. Since it has not been detected in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a possibility that someone can bring this disease into Trinidad via various means. So, if someone decides to put seedlings or budwood, citrus budwood, into their luggage or into a container or probably into a barrel, and this might be done intentionally or unintentionally, there's a possibility that infected citrus canker material can enter in through our borders. So there's also the unregulated entry of infected plant and plant materials. That is persons who take it upon themselves and use unauthorized entry and bring these materials through the borders without proper authorization. Also, we have wounds and openings that are formed by leaf miners. And as I mentioned before, pruning and hedging can also cause wounds and openings that will allow the disease to spread. Water, rainwater, or irrigation water will facilitate the entry of the pathogen through the lamina and the stomata of the leaves. Wind and rain are two of the primary factors that can contribute to the spread of the disease, especially strong wind-driven rain. In the Caribbean, we are affected by hurricanes and tropical storms. These hurricanes and tropical storms can cause the long-range dissemination and distribution of citrus canker bacterial pathogens. And therefore, there's a potential and the means and the mechanism for the spread of citrus canker across the region. Also, we have to take into consideration that due to climate change and the change in the climate that we are seeing from time to time, these weather phenomena, hurricanes and tropical storms, are more frequent and more intense. So provide a greater means for the spread of citrus canker to the Caribbean and to Trinidad and Tobago as well. Now I'll delve a little deeper into the leaf miner interaction as it pertains to the spread of citrus canker. Leaf miners infestation is a serious consideration. Leaf miners would leave large wounds and openings on the leaves and on the surface of the fruits and wherever they have access to, and worsen the disease infestation and spread. They create wounds and entry points where the bacterium, that bacterial inoculum, is able to penetrate the leaves or penetrate the fruit surfaces and enter into the plant. So therefore, the control of leaf miners, farmers must be cognizant of leaf miner infestation in their farms, because this is an important component in the fight against citrus canker if it was to show up in Trinidad and Tobago. And as well, your young leaves and your younger fruits are more susceptible to the leaf miner attack. So you must be careful and must be vigilant and look for leaf miner interactions when we are treated with citrus canker. So as I move on to the other slide, we have a clearer illustration of how leaf miner interaction can facilitate the development of citrus canker disease. As you can see clearly in picture, the pictures labeled 3 and 4 in the illustrations on the slide, you can see where the leaf miner is able to burrow through the leaves and the fruit surfaces respectively. You can see in picture 3 and 4, the leaf miner produces a series of tunneling damages on the leaf and on the fruit. And this is where it creates an entry pathway for the citrus canker bacteria. And in pictures number 5 and 6, this shows the epidemiological development of the citrus canker actually in the burrows that the leaf miners would have created. Hence, once again, farmers must be aware, farmers must be cognizant of the potential damage that citrus leaf miners can cause and how they can contribute and facilitate the development and spread of the citrus canker disease. Now, I will address the symptoms and the symptomologies associated with citrus canker. Citrus canker causes lesions. That's one of the distinctive features of citrus canker. As the name suggests, it produces a canker-like lesion. These lesions will appear on the leaves, on the stems, on the branches, on the fruits. The development of these symptomologies is incremental and develops over time. But the important thing is that when you're actually doing that inspection or you're looking for citrus canker, when you're inspecting a leaf, you need to look not just at the surface of the leaf, but you also need to inspect the underside or the reverse side of the leaf. You will have more pronounced blisters on the reverse side of the leaf after 16 days. Citrus canker will produce a brown water-soaked lesion, and this will be surrounded by a prominent yellow halo. The lesions created are raised and corky. They may be circular to irregular in shape, and you will have a necrotic center in the lesion, which will eventually fall out, and you have that pinhole effect. But the most important symptom, the most important symptomology that will distinguish, that will let you differentiate or establish that this is citrus canker, is that prominent yellow halo that develops around the citrus canker lesions. And as I said before, these lesions become raised, they are brown, and they are corky. So it's very distinguishable. So in the early stages of citrus canker, you'll have a light chlorosis that will develop on the leaf. As you can see clearly in the illustration, on the picture presented, there's a slight chlorosis that's on the surface of the leaf. And if you look at picture number 1, that's a slight chlorosis to the underside of the leaf. And then on picture number 2, you have that slight chlorosis and a gradual movement towards yellowing on the surface of the leaf. Larger lesions will start to crack and expand after 20 days. And you have that visible or noticeable yellow lesion and that water soaking effect. And naturally, with citrus canker infestation, the younger plants or your younger seedlings are more susceptible, as well as the younger leaves and the younger fruits are also more susceptible to citrus canker infestation. So remember, you need to look not just at the surface of the leaf, but also the underside of the leaf to look and check for the the symptomologies and the symptoms associated with citrus canker. And then we look at the progression of the disease after 28 days. And once again, as you see in the illustration, the picture labeled 1. If you look at the underside of the disease, you can see those symptoms beginning to now become more visual and more defined on the underside of the leaf. And it's similar in picture number 2, the symptoms are becoming more clearer. And at the furthest end, in the picture that we have there, you have a great illustration of citrus canker development after 28 days on the picture illustration number 4. And you can always be able to see that distinguishable yellow halo that is developing around the citrus canker lesion. And the citrus canker lesion also develops on the fruit as well. And at the mature stages of the disease, then you will have an actual visual. The actual disease will actually show up, and you have a clear illustration and a clear site of the disease. So as you can see clearly in the picture to the center, number 2, you have that prominent yellow halo. And after the prominent yellow halo, you have those water soaked margins, and you have that brown corky lesion. And this is quite definitive for citrus canker. As well, in picture number 1, you can see that citrus canker does not just only affect the leaf, it will even affect and appear on the petiole of the leaf. So, as I said, the most distinguishable feature is that corky-like lesion, the water-soaked margins, and it will be surrounded by that prominent yellow halo that surrounds the citrus canker lesions. And as I mentioned before, citrus canker does not only just affect the fruit, the leaves, it also affects the fruit. And fruits are susceptible to citrus canker up to 90 days after petal fall. And at this point, the fruits are becoming severely blemished because of citrus canker infestation. And you can see in the illustration presented 1, 2, 3, and 4 that these the canker-like corky lesions are beginning to appear. The raised lesions, as you can look, if you look at picture label number 2 on the slide, you can see those canker lesions becoming more prominent and more visible. And then as you switch to picture label number 4, you can see that distinctive yellow halo that surrounds the canker region. So these canker regions will be surrounded by water-soaked margin, and remember that prominent yellow halo. That's the most definitive sign that you have been affected by citrus canker. And then symptoms will also appear. We have symptoms that are related to the older or the latter stages of the disease. These lesions become darkened over time, moving from brown to black. And you have severe, as you can see in the pictures on this slide, you have severe disfiguration of the fruits. These fruits become unsightly and actually render the fruits totally unmarketable at this point, because the lesions have developed to a point where they have erupted and the fruits are no longer marketable. As well, in severe cases of citrus canker infestation, it can actually cause the death of the entire tree. So those are some of the citrus canker symptomologies: that prominent yellow halo, that raised canker-like lesions, the water-soaked margins. Those are some of the symptoms and some of the signs that you want to look for. Once you're going out into the field, you can look for these signs, and you could know and you could have an idea if you have been affected by Asian citrus canker. Now we also have some Asian citrus canker lookalikes. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting because these lookalikes are quite similar in symptomology to citrus canker, but they have some defined differences. So this will get a little bit challenging. Now, the first lookalike disease is citrus scab. Now, this disease is a fungal disease caused by Ehrlichia fawcettii. Now, as a fungal disease, it is already different from citrus canker, since citrus canker is a bacterial disease. For us at the research division, at the pathology unit, if we collect a sample like this, we will be able, through all laboratory processes and through our diagnostic protocols, to determine whether you have been affected by a fungal disease, in this case citrus scab, or whether you've been affected by a bacterial disease as citrus canker, and that's through our diagnostic processes. But everyone may not be afforded the opportunity to have access to diagnostic processes. So in the field, you have to observe and look at the signs and symptoms to differentiate whether it be affected by citrus scab or some other fungal disease, or whether it is citrus canker, which is a bacterial disease. But for citrus scab, the differentiating features is that these lesions that are created are tan pink, as opposed to citrus canker, where the lesions are brown in color. The lesions would eventually turn brown, but they become flattened. But the most definitive feature here is that there is no yellow halo and you have no water soaked margins. So citrus canker, you have that defined yellow halo that surrounds the corky raised lesions, as opposed to citrus scab, where you have no yellow halo and no water soaked margins around the lesions. Another disease that may resemble or look like citrus canker is citrus greasy spots. This again is another fungal disease. It may have similar appearance to citrus canker in the younger stages, but as you can see in the pictures presented, these lesions eventually go from dark brown to black. And this is one of the features, this is one of the symptomologies of greasy spot that will distinguish it, definitely distinguish it from Asian citrus canker. This disease has a black, greasy appearance that would appear on the leaves. And as I stated before, this citrus canker has that definitive, prominent yellow halo that surrounds the citrus canker lesions. And in greasy spot, there is no yellow halo that surrounds the lesions. The defining and the distinguishable feature with greasy spot is that black, greasy appearance that would appear on the fruit and on the leaves. And that will distinguish it from Asian citrus canker that has that yellow halo. Also, another lookalike disease that we will explore today is citrus alternator brown spot. And this one also has some similar features to Asian citrus canker, but the lesions in this case, they would appear on the fruits, on the leaves, and sometimes on the twigs. The disease progresses to a darkened state. So you have that darkened appearance for alternator brown spot. As well, you will see large lesions with a mild yellow halo. But this yellow halo will present itself in the older stages or the latter stages of the disease. The very old lesions can appear dark and flattened, but as you can see, once again, there is no yellow halo associated with this disease. This disease has a tan-colored appearance on the lesions, and the disease is most commonly associated with tangerine and tangerine hybrids. And finally, we have another citrus canker lookalike, that being the citrus leprosis virus. And once again, we have a distinguishing feature here. Asian citrus canker is caused by a bacteria. Citrus leprosis is caused by a virus. Leaf lesions are chlorotic at the start and are smooth to the touch. The lesions for citrus leprosis, in this case, that will distinguish it is that these lesions are rusty red and they are depressed. And that is different from Asian citrus canker. Asian citrus cankers are raised and corky, so you have that defining features between the two diseases. So, in summary, Asian citrus canker, the way to know that it is Asian citrus canker, the distinguishing feature for Asian citrus canker is that prominent yellow halo that will develop around the raised corky lesions that would appear on the fruits, that would appear on the leaves, and that will distinguish it from the other lookalike diseases. Now, you may be wondering, how do we test for citrus canker? Well, we have laboratory processes that we utilize to test for citrus canker in Trinidad and Tobago. Laboratory diagnosis of Asian citrus canker is done through the preparation of cultural bacterial plates. Also, we will engage in gram staining, and this will determine whether the sample that we are examining is gram positive or gram negative. As I mentioned before, Asian citrus canker is a gram negative bacteria. Also, in testing and looking for Asian citrus canker, we will also produce microscope slides that we will be able to observe underneath the microscope and determine what pathogen we are looking at. Also, at the research division, we are also able to utilize PCR technology. We are also able to use PCR technology and analysis to confirm with a high degree of certainty that the disease or the sample that we may collect in the field, we will be able to determine that through this PCR technology if Asian citrus canker is present or absent from the sample that we would have collected. Also, we do field testing for Asian citrus canker, and what we utilize is a lateral flow device or a lateral flow test. We commonly refer to it as an immunostrip test for Xanthomonas and Apodes citri. Now, this lateral flow test operates in a similar fashion or on a similar principle to what we are now so familiar with, those COVID-19 rapid antigen tests. It operates on a similar principle. So what will happen is that when we go out into the field and we collect a suspected sample, we will collect a sample that has some measure or some degree of symptomology. That will be a sample that has a lesion sample, or a sample that has canker, an obvious canker sample, and then we take this sample and test it on the principle that this sample will have some measure of antibodies or antigens in it. And then we utilize the lateral flow test to get a quick result for the sample that we intend to analyze. And the beauty about using the lateral flow test is that you can get a rapid or a quick result from this type of analysis, this type of testing. And also, the tests are quite convenient because they can be utilized in the field, or they can also be utilized within the laboratory. So we at the research division are quite equipped and quite ready and able to do tests to analyze and determine whether citrus canker is present or absent. So we move on to the management of Asian citrus canker. So through our surveillance activities, we at the research division were able to conduct a citrus canker survey. Actually, a national citrus survey for citrus canker was conducted in October 2021, and this survey covered all 8 counties in Trinidad. And I'm happy to report that from the results that we received, Asian citrus canker is not present in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is not present in Trinidad, and this is a status that we are quite anxious to maintain, and we want to preserve this results. And I'd also like to mention it is our intention to advocate for the conduct of a similar citrus canker survey in Tobago, in our sister Isle of Tobago, to complete our national citrus survey, and this is towards meet our international obligations, international reporting obligations for communicating our disease status, and for transparency reasons as well, for trade and so on, and for trade implications. So the management of citrus canker is a multifaceted process. It's not just one. We're not going to tackle the management of citrus canker from one angle, but from a multifaceted approach. It involves various preventative measures, cultural practices, as well as chemical applications. But at this time, citrus canker is not present in Trinidad and Tobago. So it is quite important, and I'd like to repeat, for the ministry and for the research division and this crop protection subdivision, it is quite important that we adhere to strict quarantine measures, as this is necessary to prevent the entry of citrus canker into Trinidad and Tobago and into our jurisdiction. So, on behalf of the ministry and on behalf of the research division, we are appealing to agricultural commodity importers. We are advising you to kindly follow the recommendations that are outlined, those recommendations that are stipulated on your import permit when you go about to import citrus plants or citrus planting material or any material. As a matter of fact, once you're importing these materials, we are asking you kindly to follow the recommendations and the stipulations that are outlined on the import permit. Also, through the plant quarantine section, we are trying to keep citrus canker out of Trinidad. Through the tireless work and the effort of our plant quarantine officers and guards, the surveillance and inspection activities that they carry out on a daily basis has contributed significantly to preventing the entry of citrus canker into Trinidad and Tobago. And I'd like to say thanks and kudos to the plant quarantine officers. They are working extremely hard, and they have been the difference in preventing Asian citrus canker and many other diseases like lethal yellowing and frosty pod disease, preventing these diseases from entering into Trinidad and Tobago. They continue to do the inspections at the various ports of entries in the airport at Port of Spain and Point Lisas and in Tobago and Iana to prevent a host of diseases and pests from penetrating the borders and entering into Trinidad and Tobago. So we continue to congratulate them and ask them to continue to do their work diligently. Also, for control, we can also practice personal control, personal decontamination. We can also do a personal thing to prevent the entry of this disease into Trinidad and Tobago. So on the farm, citrus canker infestation can be prevented and controlled by practicing personal decontamination and sanitization on the farm site. And this can be done when we are entering into the farm and when we are leaving from the farm. Personal decontamination will prevent the disease from moving from one location to another. Also, we need to be aware that we have to, as a cultural practice, decontaminate and clean all tools and equipment, because this can be a source for spreading disease from one plant to another and from one location to another. Farm equipment that's moving from one farm to another will carry that citrus canker inoculum, that citrus canker pathogen material from one farm to another. So it's important that you decontaminate and you clean all your farm equipment and to prevent the movement of the disease from one area to the next. Also, we have the option of utilizing chemical sprays and applications in the form of copper sprays. These copper sprays will provide a preventative mechanism and a control mechanism to prevent the disease penetration and development on your citrus farm. And these sprays can be applied at 3 weeks intervals. So you have a number of ways that we can prevent the entry of the disease into Trinidad and Tobago, and also to prevent the disease entry onto your farm. That being from a holistic point of view and from a personal responsibility perspective. Also, from a cultural perspective and from a cultural practice, we can also practice the use of windbreaks. As I mentioned before, the disease is spread by strong rain-driven breeze or rain-driven wind that will move that inoculum from one location to another. So if you install or you utilize your windbreaks, that will form a barrier between an area that will be infected with the citrus canker disease, and that windbreak will be able to protect your farm from the movement of that disease from that infected area to your farm, your uninfected farming area. So you can also utilize windbreaks as a cultural measure for the control of citrus canker disease. Also, in the event that citrus canker is detected in Trinidad and Tobago, our national action plan that is developed through the research division will be immediately activated. To effectively control the disease, you have to prevent the spread of the disease. This is achieved by the implementation of an aggressive eradication program. So trees that are infested with citrus canker will have to be removed and burnt, as you can see in the illustration on the slide. This would include the removal of all exposed trees in the recognized area of infestation. That being trees that are both diseased and asymptomatic as well. These trees would have to be culled and removed. And also, we encourage persons and farmers, persons working on citrus farms, if you have to do pruning, you do your pruning during the drier periods or during the dry seasons. That will reduce the movement because you're not having that rain, that water interaction. So you reduce the possibility that trees will become infected with citrus canker, with the citrus canker inoculum. Now, are there resistant and tolerant varieties? Yes, there are. We have some susceptible varieties, and we have some moderately tolerant varieties, and we have some almost nearly resistant varieties. So susceptibility to the disease ranges from high to almost resistant based on the citrus variety or the citrus type. So your grapefruits and your limes are highly susceptible, unfortunately. And your sweet orange and lemons, those are moderately susceptible. And for us in Trinidad and Tobago, we have that Valencia orange and some of those oranges, those are moderately resistant. And mandarins that we enjoy so much seasonally, those mandarins may be tolerant to the disease. And we have some almost near resistant varieties as well. So In summary, citrus canker is a notifiable disease, and that means if you suspect or you determine that citrus canker is present on your citrus farm or in your backyard or in your small garden, you suspect that you have citrus canker disease, you are obligated by the laws to inform the appropriate authority, inform the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Also, I would like to reiterate that based on a survey conducted as recent as October 2021 across all 8 counties in Trinidad, citrus canker has not been detected in Trinidad and Tobago. And once again, we are vehemently advocating that we are able to conclude this national citrus survey with our counterparts in Tobago at the earliest and the most convenient opportunity. Also, we must, for farmers and for the general public, you must be cognizant of those citrus canker lookalikes, such as Alternaria brown spot and citrus scab. And as it pertains to the management and control of citrus canker, for us, once again, I'd like to reiterate that we don't have it and we are trying to prevent the entry of this disease into Trinidad and Tobago. So once again, human service that's been done by the palm quarantine officers, we'd like to encourage them to keep up the good work. Other than that, we also have chemical controls that we can resort to. We have cultural controls in the form of decontamination, personal decontamination, the utilization of windbreaks, and the observation of sanitization processes and protocols. And as I said, in the instance that the disease is detected in Trinidad and Tobago, we'll immediately activate our national action plan and roll out an aggressive eradication program to contain and mitigate the spread of Asian citrus canker. Also, I'd like to mention that the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries is the most reliable and dependable source of information as it relates to citrus canker and all other pests and diseases. So if it is that you need information, you need to reach out. So reach out to the Ministry of Agriculture, and we are able and willing to provide you with information as it pertains to the control of citrus canker or any of the other pests and diseases associated with agriculture. We are encouraging you, once you have or you suspect or you haven't seen any signs of citrus canker, you can report it to the ministry. So you can visit the ministry's website, agriculture.gov.tt, and you can utilize that media, that forum, and you can pass on the information to us. Also, you can contact or visit any of your agricultural county offices or reach out to our extension officer, and they will be willing to look into your report. So our extension officers and our research division field officers are readily accessible and available to come to your commercial farms, to your homestead, or even to your backyard gardens to conduct a detailed field visit and give you and do an assessment of your fields. We also provide you with recommendations on crop agronomy, on treating with fertilization, pest and disease control, and all things related to the growth and the production on your farm or for your crops. We also welcome and ask you to send your emails, especially emails containing pictures. You can send those to ppdiaglaboratory@gov.tt. Once you send those pictures, we're able to assess the pictures and we respond to you as promptly and as soon as possible, and we assess your situation and we'll see how we can move forward and treat with whatever disease, not just citrus canker, whatever disease might be in your premises or on your farm. You can also call the division, the research division, at 646-4337, or the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries head office at 220-6253, and they will take the information and forward that information to the research division and to the pathology unit, and we will be able to make contact with you and treat with whatever situations that you may need treated with. So that brings me to the end of this presentation on citrus canker, and I encourage you can enter your comments or ask questions on the Facebook comment sections, and I will see how I can address your inquiries in the shortest possible time. And Jennifer, I saw you asking if the disease will affect other plants other than citrus. Well, no, the bacteria, it can affect other plants, but for citrus, this disease is particular to citrus plants only. So Asian citrus canker and the particular pathogen will cause this disease in citrus. So it wouldn't affect other plants per se. They are similar pathogens in that family or that phylum that would affect other plants, but this pathogen, this citrus canker bacterium, is particular to citrus and would affect citrus plants. And Anita, you are asking, does the disease affect human bodies? If consumed, well, it would not harm you per se, but after the disease, after the fruits are affected by citrus canker, they will be in a condition that you would not be able to consume them, right? So because they might reach the point that they are decaying, or it would affect, you have premature fruit drop, so those fruits will be young and they will be sweet, or they will be not sour, they will not be edible, right? So it wouldn't affect you, it wouldn't affect your health, but you wouldn't want to consume a fruit that is decaying or a fruit that is decayed and blemished, right? So you wouldn't want to consume a fruit in that condition. As I await any more questions, let me say special thanks to the Ministry of Agriculture and to our forward-thinking Permanent Secretary for coming up with this innovative, interactive awareness outreach program. I would also like to express my appreciation to Mr. Hines, the Manager of Corporate Communication, and his staff, as well as the IT department, for their assistance in organizing today's Facebook Live presentation. I'd also like to say thanks to Ms. Rebecca Baines and her staff at ETIS Extension Training Information Services for their contributions in putting this training session together. Also, I'd like to say thanks to the Director of Research and the Deputy Director of Research for affording us the opportunity, the crop protection staff, to participate in this awareness series. I'd also like to personally single out Ms. Diane Rambrou, our former director, who is now at ETIS, for her guidance and the contribution and dedication that it pertains to the crop protection subdivision, and encouraging us to participate in these awareness sessions. And last but not least, I'd like to say a special thanks to the entire staff of the crop protection subdivision and the staff in the plant pathology unit, especially my two partner plant pathology colleagues, Mr. Kishore Ragbi and Ms. Julia Paris. And also, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who tuned in today to this short presentation on agents such as canker. And also, I'd like to remind you that the series continues. And we want to encourage you to join us once again next Tuesday. We encourage you to join us as we continue this series of awareness sessions. Next week, we are scheduled to be treating with the identification and management of another insect pest, that being psyllid insect, Crucianus latipinis, and that psyllid that affects pumpsitae trees. So, as I come to the conclusion of this presentation, I want to encourage you, if you have signs or you suspect there's any signs of agents such as canker, you can send those emails and those pictures to ppdiaglaboratory@gov.tt, and we will be gladly and quickly able to respond to your inquiries, and we can schedule a field visit. We come to your location, collect those samples, and we will present you with a diagnostic of what those samples might be, citrus canker or otherwise, or any other pests and diseases that may be affecting your production. So once again, I want to say thanks to everyone who is joining us today, and I wish you a good day and an enjoyable rest of your day. Thank you.